All right, so first things first, as usual, you want to make sure you are working on the right um, units. There's a couple of ways. There's always multiple ways you can do things in Rhino. We can either right click on the units down here if you're using Windows, and then go to unit settings, and then this window will pop up. Or you can do it right from the command line, and if we type in units, enter, same window will pop up. So from here we're gonna go from millimeters to inches, and I prefer to reduce my absolute tolerance. This is just so that the operations such as boolean or split, or whenever you're combining a lot of geometries together, it sort of rounds up and kind of makes up for any discrepancies. If you have a very high tolerance, it's going to require you to be way more precise with the positioning of your geometry. So this is a bit more forgiving. Um, so I'll do that. So there we go. Let me put a title on this so that we know what we're talking about. Let's write one down here. I'm gonna type in text. Let's give this a nice little 3 inches height for my text. Nice bold letters. And we're gonna call this, what are we gonna call this? Let's see. I'm just finding the right name for this session. Just give me 2 seconds. Okay, here we go. I'm just gonna manual deformation. There we go. I'm gonna place this title here for our reference. Okay, so another thing to notice, I added a little highlighted aura around the mouse for you guys to be able to follow. Keep in mind, every time I left click, like I'm trying to select something, it's gonna turn green, and every time I right click, it's gonna be purple. So just keep that in mind. All right, next thing, we're gonna make sure we have our layers organized. We're just gonna name this one, double click on the layer name. Let's change this to title. Okay, let's create a new layer for our first step. Make sure we're working on it. And let's lock our title so that we don't mess with it. If you cannot see your primitives on the left hand, it's because you're probably on a different tab. So you want to make sure you're under standards, and all your primitives and sort of basic modeling tools are going to appear on the left hand side. We're going to select cube, and once it's selected, and it's going to ask you to select the first corner of base. It also gives you some more options, but then again, I mean, you don't have to click on this. You're ready to start using the command as is. But so let's start somewhere close to the middle. And now that I selected a base point, I can either draw this manually, or I can simply type in what I want. So I'm going to select 10, enter, 10, enter, 10, enter. All right, we've created our 10 by 10 by 10 cube. And next thing I want to do is I want to make sure, at least for the perspective, we're using the shaded mode so that we can appreciate a little better what we're doing. Let's go to shaded mode, and here we are. All right, perfect. Next step, we're going to create our cage. But remember, we want to record. We want to save our steps. This is going to be our first step. We're going to right click on the layer and duplicate layer and objects. so that both of them are duplicated. You'll notice that now when I try to select, there's two objects. All right, so I'm gonna rename this as step 2 and make sure I'm working in that new layer. I'm gonna lock and hide the step 1 so that I don't mess with it. And the next thing we want to do is create the cage. We want to save the cage as a sub layer of step 2. So if we are on step 2, we can go to where it says new, create new sub layer, or we can also right click on the layer and create a new sub layer. Either way would work. Let's name this cage, and let's change the color just so that we can better appreciate it. Let's select a nice orange. All right, so we're gonna make sure we're working with cage, and we're ready to create our cage. Let's go ahead and type in cage on the command line, enter. It's asking me to create to select the first corner. Any corner would do. We can start from here. And how do I get to the other side? You might be wonder. You can project it from the top, or you can simply, every time you do a command, you can move to any of the windows, right? If you can, maybe you can appreciate now that if I'm working from the right, even though I started working in perspective, I can switch to front and do it this way, or I can switch to the right view, or I can do it from the top. So this is very helpful. I selected my opposite corner and the height. So now it's asking me for control points. I would advise you guys to use 4 control points for now. Let's not change this. You're obviously welcome to add more control points, but it might become a little messy and a little bit too difficult for this exercise. But just keep in mind that you can add more control points in case you wanted to have even more control. But for now, we're just going to go ahead and either hit enter or spacebar, and we have created our cage. Okay, perfect. Now we are going to start distorting or doing the second step using our cage by using the command CageEdit. As you can see, CageEdit, enter. So it's asking us to select the captive objects. We're going to select our cube, enter. Select the control objects. That's going to be our cage. And select the region to edit. We're just going to stay with global. And we don't have to select anything. We're just going to hit enter. Okay, so that has created our control points. Let me go into, actually I'm going to stay in these 4 views. From here you can, like I showed you guys in the class, you can start manipulating any of the points, and just keep in mind and get used to working in multiple windows. If I select this point, I can come and move it from the right view. I don't have to work only in perspective. This is going to give you a lot of freedom. One thing that I really like to do for this type of exercise, and this is just a suggestion, you don't have to do it this way, but let's say I select my opposite corners, the points on the opposite corners. Here we go. I got everything selected there. I can start playing with this, and I can move it around maybe from the top view as such. If I don't like that, I can go back. I can maybe scale them instead in one direction. I can scale them in the horizontal direction as well, or I can do a uniform scale if I were to select my my scale handle here, and while pressing shift, you'll notice that both it's gonna scale uniformly That's another thing that you guys can try. Um, let's try to think about maybe a way to get inspired is think about a word, maybe something like twist or collapse, anything that you guys might want to try, and try to recreate something with a word that inspires you. Another thing that you can do is play, as I said before, play with your views. Uh, you don't have to select everything one by one. If you know you want to select all the points that are located in the center on both sides, what I would do is I would identify uh, this as the right, as you can see the shape. It correlates with the right view. And I can drag a box, I can draw a box, and it'll select everything, all the points behind that right view. And same thing, I can start playing with them, maybe doing that, maybe collapsing them. I can start twisting them. Well, that's not looking very fancy, but you get the idea. Um, okay, so let me try something else. Let me just make this a little bit more fun looking. I'm gonna select all my corner points. See if I can rotate this 90 degrees. Let's see what happens. Oh wow. Okay, maybe that's a little too much. Let's do 45. Okay, this is looking like something. Say this is what I like for step 2. We're just gonna leave it as is. We'll go ahead and make a copy of this to start working on step 3. Remember, we're gonna right click on step 2, go to duplicate layers and objects. We're gonna say yes to all to make sure so that this will come up whenever there is more than one object within a layer. So I just say yes to all, and let's change that name to step 3. Here we are, and we can go ahead and lock our previous layer and hide it as well so that we don't mess with it accidentally. Okay, let's go to step 3. We still have our cage. We don't have to be working under cage. We can go ahead and work under step 3, and we can continue deforming our deforming exercise. However, you must redo or reapply the CageEdit command. So again, select captive object, enter, select your control box or cage, and enter. So all of your control points are gonna come back. And maybe let's make another iteration of this. This is kind of, oh, this doesn't look right. Let's see, maybe we take all of this, make it a little bigger, and take these points. Okay, let's call this our step 2. Hopefully your design is gonna look a little better than mine. This is not looking great, but that's not the point right now. All right, so we have our third step completed.